Hello and welcome to the World of Football show here on Sports Tonight Live. I'm your host, Mina Rzouki, and I'm joined by none other than our Sports Tonight correspondent, Tancredi Palmeri. Hello.
What a presentation.
What a presentation. It was a delightful week of football, especially in the Champions League, as Juventus finally managed a European win after what looked like a huge amount of draws. Meanwhile, Manchester United, of course, qualified to the next stage. Chelsea scored a last-minute winner against Shakhtar, and Celtic made history, or at least it seemed to be that way. But let us start off with Juventus.
Oh, what a surprise. Yeah,
what a surprise. Not because I
can say this to you. At last, after 2 decades, you can enjoy a win in Champions League.
Oh, that is harsh. So
you know
harsh.
what will happen now to my timeline on Twitter? You.
The abuse. Yeah. But I do want to say something. Firstly, I want to say that I think I'm a genius, simply because I said that Strama would win.
Yeah, tell us what we don't know, but...
But come on, I did say Strama would win.
Yes.
Not because...
You're talking about the Serie A.
Yeah, in Serie A, Inter
winning,
winning, which I think maybe helped Juventus rediscover what it is that they were missing last year, this season. What they had, the intensity, the need, that massive, will to do well and fight for every ball that they've lacked this season, for sure, in Serie A. So then that maybe opened the door for a 4-0 win against Nordsjaelland?
I believe so. I mean, the boost absolutely was... conceding that 1-3 against Inter, not only losing, but after we saw Juventus struggling against Fiorentina in Serie A, against Shakhtar in Champions League, this probably was the very first time that Juventus completely deserved to lose, and actually they lost after 49 games. I believe anyway they would have won, but the way this game came out, it is the consequence of that Saturday. Even though that last goal at the last minute of Chelsea is messing up all the plan for Antonio Conte and everybody.
Yes, that's the important thing to discuss now.
Yeah.
Do you think that qualification now has become hard because of that last-minute Victor Moses goal?
Allora, let's recap. I said this allora in Italian. We have Shakhtar and Chelsea both with 7 points, and then we have Juventus with 6. It is 1 point less, but
Shakhtar away in the Donbass Arena as the final game for the Italians.
First, Juventus-Chelsea. So first you are gone now Chelsea. And it's a Chelsea that is wounded, is no more sure of the leadership in the Premier League. Now is behind Manchester United. So there is this kind of a sense of comeback, as there was also yesterday. And then the last game. I don't know if they have to almost to hope that Shakhtar would win next game in order to find maybe a more relaxed Shakhtar Donetsk. But it is very difficult, even though I believe it might be easier to play home against Chelsea than playing away against Shakhtar Donetsk. I think so. I have to tell you one anecdote, Mina. Yesterday, so the game was already finished, Juventus Nordsjaelland, Chelsea Shakhtar was going on. Antonio Conte is still banned and will be still for 1 month.
Yes.
So he's not on the bench like every manager and then going in the changing rooms or to do the flash interviews. He was in the skybox, then was
by the press office,
walking by the press office.
And he had them supporting.
And then there were 2 journalists that when Chelsea scored, just screamed and celebrated. And he was furious, enraged. He just ran in the press room and said, who was the one celebrating? And nobody actually
But Sky said that they were fans of Chelsea as opposed to being journalists that were anti-Juventus. Is that true?
Well, there are also, I must say, hypotheses that were actually 2 Italian journalists that are known to be Torino fans. So
you know what? Whether you are a fan of Torino, Inter, whatever you say, you are still supporting Italy in the Champions League for coefficient points. For goodness' sake,
Italian should, if it's really they were Italian journalists, be them polite. Honestly, I would never support. I would never support. I would never scream, even if it's your team, something like that. You are there supposed to do a job. But anyway, you can't pretend that. No. But that, honestly, the reaction of Conte must be something to see.
Well, I don't blame Conte, but I will read a quick quote before we move on to the next game. This is one from Claudio Marchisio, who was phenomenal, hands down man of the match in that game yesterday. And he said, a draw tonight would have meant elimination for us. So we have to prepare for 2 more finals against Chelsea and Shakhtar. Buffon went on to say that it is possible possible if Juventus play the way they know how to play.
That line, it's a bit dangerous. When an Italian player is bringing out the line, they are all finals, it's bringing so much bad luck. Just don't go with the finals line. Just go with the understatement.
So what I think is shocking is now Milan, who are barely managing in Serie A, who are basically, I don't know whether you can say really unlucky or barely aware of what formation they're supposed to play, although I think it really should be what they've been playing recently, 4-2-3-1?
Yeah, now it's going to be 4-2-3-1.
I think it's the right one. Now, they finally won over the weekend, 5-1. And now they went to Malaga, and I really actually think they deserved to get more out of this game than just the one goal they managed against Malaga and the 1 point.
Yeah, in San Siro. Yeah, I mean, for the way we used to know Allegri's Milan in the last couple of months, of course they deserve more. Probably, normally, if it would be Milan of 1 year ago, 2 years ago, we would probably say, okay, they should have done more, but we've seen really a team falling apart, and instead in the last 10 days has been quite, we saw a lot from Milan, we saw a good comeback. Malaga was very solid. Before this game, Malaga didn't concede any goal, so even scoring. And it's very important, Pato scored. See, he came back since 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, from his injury, but you could spot that he was still quite feared to run on the pitch, quite feared to put his leg in a take or something like that. The fact that he scored could be a huge help for Milan.
Well, they certainly need their strikers. And, of course, Malaga have the stingiest defence in La Liga. They can barely concede. Pellegrini has taken a side and made them somewhat defensively very capable at the moment. So this is their first concession, but they are odds on. That's it to qualify.
Well, no, it's Malaga 10 points.
They've
and
qualified
Milan 5,
already.
So it's, yeah, it's, I mean, you can say anything.
Can Milan qualify now?
Well, they go to play Bruxelles, in Bruxelles against Anderlecht. The last time they played against Anderlecht, if I'm not mistaken,
they lost 1-0.
I believe they won 1-0 with a Kaká goal. It must be, if I'm not mistaken, 2007. And
yeah, but in the reverse fixture, they played Anderlecht a few weeks ago. They lost.
No, it was 0-0 in San Siro.
Oh, it was 0-0. You're right. You're right.
So it is actually a pitch, a stadium where they can make it. It was a different kind of Milan, of course. But, well, Anderlecht did this against Zenit. Now Zenit is just with 3 points. And Zenit is hosting...
terrible defense.
Yeah, Zenit is hosting Malaga, and with all the things happening there, I think that it's not Zenit to be worried about, because Malaga, I don't see them conceding the game. Maybe Zenit could get a draw in St. Petersburg against Malaga, but I don't see Malaga conceding the game.
Yes.
Bruxelles decide everything for Milan.
Right, okay. Now, we've covered the Italian ones, but I think probably the game of these two fixtures... and
These are the champions!
Honestly,
the Celtic, not the champions.
When I saw that goal, the second goal by Watt, I was like, what is going on? What an amazing goal. What an amazing moment for the boy who scored 2 next-gen goals against Barcelona, home and away last season. He was a sensation from the moment he entered onto the pitch. Is this Celtic's greatest victory?
I don't know. Honestly, I think that history must have... maybe it could be Celtic greatest surprise, okay? I don't want... Because I was reading today the debate and people saying that this is bigger than the European Cup of 1967, the one against Inter, saying that it's bigger of the 9 titles in a row. Calm down.
Slight hyperbole.
It's even, yeah. I mean, history counts. Maybe the biggest surprise. Maybe the biggest. I concede that.
But is Barcelona really that side anymore? The side that sort of strikes fear into the heart of their opponents.
Exactly.
And they are a much more open side of the back. Now, on average, they possess 78 possession per game. And Celtic had, what, 14, 15% all the night?
Well, it's
and the most efficient
depends
side?
from the counts, but anyway, the range is from 14 to 18%. But that is not a surprise. I must say, Celtic did the game that we were expecting. The game that they played actually in Camp Nou, there is not that great difference. The difference is in Barcelona, and the difference compared with last year, it is to understand there are some people saying that now this Barcelona is playing on the quality of the single players, no more collectively. And that would...
You think it's now about individual talent?
Seems like that. And again, Messi and Villa seem to...
Not like each other.
Indeed.
Via going to Juventus?
It's costing a lot, and I don't see Barcelona getting rid of him. I think Juventus getting Llorente, they are really a fit on him, I must say.
Really?
Yeah. But if this is really what some critics is spotting, that Barcelona is not more playing collectively, but counting of the skills of the single players, this is the end. This is the end. Of course, it's Barcelona got Messi, Xavi,
We
Iniesta.
say that every year.
But now there is a reason why. If it would be like that, it would be a great team, Barcelona, but not that historical Barcelona.
Okay, I understand you. Now, probably the plaudits or everyone should be praising Forrester, of course, the goalkeeper of Celtic, 6'5", you know, in his greatness. Now, he should definitely be included. He was called up by the English...
He was.
Yeah, England coach. But he is not really the second to Joe Hart, and he ought to be the second to Joe Hart.
He also had was not only called up, he had some... he played some games, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if he's played the games, but in all honesty, they don't give him as much of a runabout. When he was called up as a squad player, nothing more. No one is looking at him as the second to Joe Hart, which is probably what he deserves to be.
Yeah,
especially for his performances day in and day out for Celtic. Now, what's really funny is Mundo Deportivo came out with a headline that said La Gran Muralla, simply because the guy was, you know, the big wall.
That's a great picture. We did him just all over the cover.
That was it. He was all over. It was like he was so tall he could cover the entire frame of the actual goal, and no one could get past him. Was he Celtic's greatest player?
You mean
last night?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's like,
so it wasn't what?
Wasn't what? What do you mean?
It wasn't the guys that scored? Wanyama?
No, guys. I mean, it's
like, all about Forrester.
What is 8.5, 9? Is rating?
Yeah.
Would be probably 9 out of 10. I mean, usually.
Okay, so without him, would Celtic have won? No.
It depends the kind of goalkeeper you had in his place. If you had a Hart, they would. If it's a normal...
What about if they had
Piatov? Piatov with Shakhtar Donetsk.
Yeah. Well, we have to discuss him. One goalkeeper away from being a fabulous team. Let's discuss Braga, which is the game that you went to see against Manchester United.
Okay, let's make some controversial. No, not because on purpose, but if we look at the standings, in this moment, amongst the 8 groups of Champions League, only Manchester United got 4 wins out of 4. And for the kind of game that they showed in this Champions League, it's absolutely, I'm sorry, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I know, I agree.
Yesterday, I barely saw something like that. It's not that they played like the cynical, big team, big side, they're just waiting for the right moment and then doing the comeback and shipping the 3 points. That would be okay. Everybody's doing Italian, Spanish, English. Everybody's doing it. No, for 80 minutes, Braga played perfectly. And then there wasn't some defensive mistakes. There was blackout. 3 absolute defensively blackouts. If would be an Italian team, I'm sure that someone would come out saying, oh, there is something dirty behind that mistakes. And not at all, I'm not saying that because you could spot how they really...
No, I know, of course.
But I mean, absolute blackout. And you have in front Van Persie and Rooney, you can't wait that they don't take advantage of their chances. But yesterday, Manchester United was absolutely nothing understandable because they played against Arsenal. Understandable because they had already 9 points and 1 point was good. But they have 12 points and never they show that kind of football like, oh guys, this year Manchester can...
So basically, they don't... I mean, can you honestly say that they are the comeback kings? Because twice they fall behind. How many times have they actually, in fact, fallen behind and come back to win a game? That is their what makes them special, I guess you could say. But do you really... So what you're saying is that they don't deserve to be where they are. And
no.
Are they always lucky with the fact that they seem to have these groups in which they're not very difficult?
Well, you know...
And then you look at poor City and they're lumbered with the toughest group.
That depends on the ranking, of course. But the thing is that yesterday, Ferguson decided to go with a 4-3-3. We know that Rooney is never playing close to the box since a long time. Sometimes he's showing up close to the box, but he likes to run all over, up and down, helping, blah, blah, blah. But yesterday, he was positioned as he would be a Pirlo, as he would be a Schneider. Rooney is not like that. Rooney was just beside Giggs, sometimes in the place of Giggs, doing a kind of playmaker. It's not like that. When in the last 20 minutes he was closer to the box, also came the mistakes of Braga. So at this point, now that you have Van Persie, it's no more Berbatov that sometimes he performs, sometimes
Sometimes
no.
he doesn't.
You have Van Persie, one of the top 5 strikers in the world. Why Ferguson is still insisting, letting Rooney being away from the box? Because if you can double that power of shooting that Rooney and Van Persie have, who can really stop you? I understand that Kagawa is not there now, but the thing just changed like this when Rooney was close to the box. So honestly, why playing him so wide? Why playing him so far from the box?
Doesn't seem to matter because they're still continuing to win. Maybe.
So they
Rooney...
need to be slapped to realize. They need the shock.
Well, it's what Milan needed for the last few weeks, so perhaps it's working for them. But do join us after the break and we will talk a little bit more, not about Manchester United, who have proved that you don't need a great defence to win. And they might just win a trophy based on a great attack. We'll see you in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to the World of Football show here on Sports Tonight Live. Now we move on to how the Germans and the English did on Tuesday and Wednesday night in the Champions League. Starting off, of course, with Real Madrid's draw against Borussia Dortmund. Now, do you think the Germans deserved victory on that night?
You mean in this season or?
No, against the Spaniards.
Well, you know.
And do you think they can actually win it?
You know, I was at a press conference of Alex Ferguson before Braga-Manchester United, and when he was asked about who for you are the favourites of this Champions League, he said clearly, well, of course, we can't pass by Real Madrid and Barcelona, but honestly, I think for the kind of game that they are showing, I think that Borussia Dortmund also should be included in that group. And what we are watching from Borussia Dortmund is something that we didn't see from a long time. I'm talking about a team with no stars, if we don't consider maybe Goetze, but even Goetze was even in the starting 11 of Germany at Euro 2012.
It was Royce, to be honest.
I mean, team with no stars still, that is playing the best football in Europe, and is actually even achieving basing on that football. Honestly, I did some research in mind, and then with just checking the books, I think that the last time we saw a team with these characteristics performing in this way was back in Champions League, was back in 2004 when the port of Mourinho arrived then until the trophy. So if you ask me, can they make it? I think yes, they can.
Well, to be honest, you know, I love their style of football. I think it is very collective and all that. I don't think that they can manage to play their type of football in 2 different tournaments. So they will have to concentrate more on the Champions League.
They are already concentrating more on Champions League.
Yeah, they are. But let's bring in Titus Chalk, our German football correspondent. How are you, Titus?
Hi, good, thank you.
Great. So we want to ask you, do Dortmund, how are the fans reacting in Germany? What is being said about them? Are they saying that, you know, now they're concentrating on Champions League after the embarrassment of how they performed perhaps last time around? Do they now have the experience of, you know, having played there, having formed a collective unit under Klopp? Are they good enough to win it?
Well, I think they're good enough to go far in it, aren't they? I mean, I think it says a lot that when you look at the game at the Bernabeu and the game away at Man City, both those games they conceded late equalisers and came away with draws that felt like defeats. Whereas before, you know, if you'd given them the choice of coming away with a point from either of those games, I'm sure they would have bitten your hand off. But they're clearly building up this momentum, and I think actually the comparison to Mourinho's Porto is pretty apt, and I think also Klopp has something of the Mourinho about him, you know, in the way that he really extracts the maximum from his players who, you know, until maybe a season ago weren't really big star household names. Okay, Royce has joined, but you know, it is all about the collective there. They're performing brilliantly, and I'd be very excited to see them, you know, go deep into the competition, certainly.
Titus, I don't mean to take anything away from them, because Dortmund is very much the reason that I became obsessed with the Champions League and watching their final against Juventus. And I love them. They are my favourite team to watch in Germany. Having said that, Real Madrid went into this with a makeshift defence on both occasions in some way. Arbeloa was playing out of his favoured position, and of course they missed the man that makes Real Madrid work, and he's quite underrated in that squad, which is Sami Khedira. Without his athletic...
like Makelele 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Makelele 10 years ago, Khedira now.
I agree. He is so underrated, and what he has done for Germany, as well as what he's done for Real Madrid, deserves so much. Do you think that the fact that he wasn't there, the fact that they didn't have the defenders playing in their rightful positions at the back, helped Dortmund get through?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're not playing against Real Madrid's absolute first choice 11, you're going to have a better chance, aren't you? But I think it still takes some doing to go to the Bernabeu and hang on like they did right until the last minute, and before conceding that Mesut Ozil free kick. I mean, I think it was a fantastic performance from Dortmund. And I know it's a cliche, but you can only beat what's put in front of you. Real Madrid certainly have enough firepower up front that they can beat anyone on their day, and I'm sure that'll be a factor as the competition goes on. But Dortmund did a fantastic job. I mean, it was a containment job in the second half, and Madrid looked much more balanced when they brought on Essien and had that defensive presence. Okay, perhaps not as mobile as he once was, but had that presence, a player more in the style of Khedira in the middle. But yeah, I think Dortmund, hats off to them. It's an incredibly difficult group. I certainly think Ajax have been much better than anyone thought they would be, which has really sort of tightened the group up even more. And to be top of it after those games is fantastic.
Schalke Arsenal, Titus. My question is, did Schalke waste a chance because they were playing home and after winning at Emirates they should have sealed the qualification, or considering that it was a comeback for them, so good enough in this way? Anyway, they are still at the top of the group with 1 point ahead of Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly this week wasn't quite as fantastic for the German clubs as it was 2 weeks ago. But as you said, Schalke, Dortmund, and Bayern, they're all top of their groups, and they can't fail to be happy with that. I mean, I think there was a couple of things in the Schalke game. Firstly, they suffered greatly losing Ushida, their right back, in the 25th minute, because what would normally have happened was Papadopoulos would have come in on centre half and Benedict Hervedez would have gone over to the right back. But Papadopoulos had like this gash on his head that, I mean, he was on the bench and they reluctantly threw him on at the end, but they obviously didn't want to bring him on. And you saw the second goal came directly from Lukas Podolski.
It would have scared the forwards. They should have bring him on. It was better.
Yeah, I mean, they've been very gung ho in the last few games, and throwing everyone forward. I mean, they've got this great attacking quartet with Afellay, Holtby, Farfan, and Huntelaar, and that's really exciting to watch. But they have been a little bit gung ho. And it did cost them against Arsenal. I do worry with Schalke that there might be a little hint of sort of altitude sickness. In the Bundesliga at the weekend, they contrived to lose 3-2 at Hoffenheim when they dominated the entire game, and they seemed a bit sort of a little bit complacent maybe in that game, and perhaps a little bit wasteful in front of goal, and perhaps against Arsenal as well. They were sort of a little bit wary of the whole thing happening just a bit too easily. I mean, Schalke are a club a bit like Newcastle or someone who, they've not won a title since 1958.
It's strange. I wanted to ask you one thing. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Huntelaar, and I asked you, who could he consider to go? And now I think it's from yesterday, the rumors that he could sign the new contract, staying in Schalke, 8 million euros per year. Briefly, what do you make about that?
I think he's fantastic. It was interesting. I was lucky enough to watch the Schalke game with Ralf Rangnick, the former Schalke manager, and he was clear that he certainly didn't think Huntelaar would leave Schalke. And it sounds reasonable. Like I said, he's a good fit there. He's number one, top dog. Everyone loves him. He gets all the service he needs, and all he needs to do is do what he does best and finish those chances in the box.
I would do that as well for 8 million euros, I must say.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It'll probably serve them better to just lose out on the money and make sure that they seal qualification to Champions League and get as far as possible this time round. But quick question, Bayern Munich versus Lille. I don't think very many were shocked considering how Lille have been in this Champions League so far. So is it business as usual for Bayern?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think what we're seeing from Bayern this year is the competitiveness in the squad. You know, everyone's upping their game, particularly players like Thomas Muller, who's been a bit indifferent. He's really sort of hit top form now. Ian Robbins really busting a gut when he gets to play, and sort of having Martinez as well in the squad means that there's competition for those midfield places, and Schweinsteiger as well has had to kind of battle back to his top form. So I think that's kept everyone on their toes, and I think it's probably got them all pulling in the same direction this season. And you know, they're a little bit under the radar at the moment, perhaps compared to what everyone thought of them last year. But I think they will have, you know, a role to play in the sort of latter stages of the competition.
We expect nothing less. A massive thank you to you, Titus. I'm sure we'll catch up with you next week on more info on German football. But let's move on to the English teams. We can come on to Chelsea and how they broke my heart yesterday. But,
Why? You had some nice Ukrainian experience in the past? Yeah, tell us about that. We are very interested to know.
No, I'm more interested talking about Manchester City.
You didn't say no, I didn't have. You said I'm more interested to talk about that. Okay, there is a lot to know after this show.
Naughty. Manchester City versus Ajax. They are the group, in the group of champions. Real Madrid trail Barcelona by 8 points. Borussia Dortmund trail Bayern Munich by 11 points. Ajax have not won in the league since September. How is City not doing better for a team that's only 2 points behind league leaders?
Everything is in mind there. Of course, that is not a squad that is inferior to Borussia Dortmund and to Ajax, maybe just to Real Madrid. But the way they've played against all of them, each of them, they've always been outplayed, always. They've been also unlucky, because we must say that
Balotelli possibly
ref's decision, not only Balotelli penalty, ref's decision were quite, at least let's say, odds.
Would you say that they may be lucky in the match against Borussia Dortmund then, on the flip side?
Well, I believe that was a penalty, honestly.
Okay.
But anyway, it's not only about luck. It's that if there was one team that could win that game, was more Ajax than Manchester City.
Yes.
And considering the situation that City has in Champions League, and considering they were playing at the Etihad Stadium, never that could happen again. So what should be?
So what is it? Is it Mancini? Is it the formation? Is it the fact that the players are rotated so often? Is it that they go from three at the back to 4 at the back to 4 God knows what, 4-3-3, 4-3, everything they've tried?
To be honest, when there is this kind of...
Or is he not good enough? Come on, if Pellegrini can do what he's doing with Malaga...
Yeah, okay, but Pellegrini they also did...
Cluj, Bate, they're doing better.
The disaster with Real Madrid, Pellegrini.
Disaster with Real Madrid. They broke records with Real Madrid.
But in Champions League, they lost with Leonardo's Milan at home. But let's say this. When there is such a block in mind on the pitch, it's not a matter of tactics. It's not that are, I would say, details. It's a matter of leadership of the manager. I think that Mancini is a good manager, but maybe is not good enough for these heights. One thing I want to tell you. Mancini had 4 campaigns with Inter in Champions League. He lost twice in quarterfinal, twice in round of 16. But the best of this campaign, the one where he went closer to went through, was when actually he was playing with a side that was worse than the one that won in front. So when it was Inter against Milan and nobody was expecting Inter to go through, Mancini went very close. When Inter had to make it against Villarreal, Valencia and Liverpool, he always unbelievably fall apart. So I think that this fear of heights for Mancini.
Okay, valid point. Complacency perhaps on the behalf of Man City. Anyway, let's talk of another Italian coach who's doing wonders, Di Matteo. Is he really doing wonders? Now, okay, Shakhtar, you know, I read this article by Jonathan Wilson, and he said that they struggled to finish their chances. They created so many, and it was so true yesterday. They just needed that bit of luck on their side to score them. Chelsea managed to get ahead with an Oscar wonder goal, a defensive mistake because of such poor goalkeeping by Shakhtar. But honestly, technically, and if you look at the full 90 minutes, the Ukrainians deserved more.
Yeah, but if you compare the Chelsea game with the Manchester United one, for example, the Chelsea one is the one where you can talk about being cynical of a great team. Someone that knows when it is the moment to suffer, and then when it is the moment
to play.
Yes, or at least to hurt the others, to make to really make some damage. Okay, and that is of the great sides. Not always you can lead the game. And against Shakhtar, against a side that is playing together, all these men playing together since already some time, and that they know they really, even if they don't look at each other, they know how to pass to the other. So for everybody that would be difficult. But Chelsea is a big team, and Di Matteo is a big team, because they know the moment when to suffer, and they know the moment when to come out and try to make a goal. So I think that this is a lot responsibility of Di Matteo, and the comparison with Mancini.
Well, I like Di Matteo. So quickly, will Chelsea qualify? Yes or no? Come on.
No. I say Shakhtar and Juventus.
Oh, mamma mia, I love music to my ears.
Because I believe that Juventus against Chelsea will finally make the performance of this Champions League, their performance of this Champions League.
From your lips to results. Let's see. I supported Chelsea all the way through last year. I think it's only about time I support someone else. So we'll see you after the break. Hello and welcome back to the World of Football show here on Sports Tonight Live. I'm still Mina Rzouki and I'm still joined by Tancredi, Palmeri.
No,
I think we're sure. We're sure. You never know though. But moving on to Brazil, and a lot of happenings over there. Of course, starting with the sister of Brazilian Hulk, who was kidnapped, but thankfully she's been returned home and is now back with her family. Now we've got John Cottrell from TV Globo on the line with us, and we're hoping to get more about the full story. Hi John, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Right, do tell us, can you sort of tell us what's happened, the full story about how this even occurred?
Well, okay. It's Hulk's youngest sister, 22-year-old, called Angelica Aparecida. She was kidnapped on Monday in the northeast of Brazil, in a small city in the northeast of Brazil. She's back. Let's start with that first. That she's already been released. She was released on Tuesday. Apparently, the kidnappers fell out. They couldn't decide how to return. This was an arranged thing. Kidnapping here in Brazil is, I wouldn't say too common, but it is a relatively common phenomena. And,
it's like hobby.
I'm not sure if it's a hobby.
I wouldn't say it's a hobby, no, but it's kidnapping for money, which happens quite often, I think. Many times people are just stopped on the street, taken to nearest cash points, they get the money out, and then they're released. This one was a bit different. They kept her for about 24 hours, and apparently the police have got 3 of the 4 suspects already. There's a restaurateur, or a guy who owns a restaurant. Hulk's sister wants to be a nutritionist, so she was a trainee at one particular restaurant where this guy was supplying food. Now, he is the prime suspect. The owner of this company was sending food. And apparently, they fell out, the 3 of these guys who arranged the kidnapping. They fell out, couldn't decide how to return her properly, and she was released within 24 hours. So
basically, their ineptitude at their job of kidnapping is essentially what brought her home.
I suspect that's the case, yes.
It's such a pity, because the country, the people are so just fantastic. But I'm wondering 2 things. First of all, about this case, do you think there was, even if there is nobody was speaking about that, if there was a ransom that was paid, just quickly? And secondary, do you think that there could be a kind of public safety danger, considering in the next 2 years the World Cup and everything?
Well, apparently they wanted around £90,000, which is about 300,000 reais in the local currency. But they didn't manage to get in touch with Angelica's family, which is fundamental if you want to get a ransom paid. So they couldn't do that, so that was part of the plan when it kind of fell down. So these guys were not professional kidnappers, obviously. There's a whole range of professionals here in Brazil who do this kind of stuff for a living, I think. So yeah, about £90,000. We're not sure if anything was paid. We suspect nothing was paid because she was released after a very, very quick time, and The police have got 3 of the 4 suspects already. As I said earlier, that the big kidnappings here in Brazil, those ones where they take you off the streets, take you to cash points and release you. Now, these numbers are growing. I think, looking at the numbers I've got here, in Rio de Janeiro, it was around 50 a month in 2011, and 70 in the state of São Paulo, which is about the size of the UK, in 2010.
Oh, goodness. Right, okay, well, moving on, of course, Inter Milan striker, well, their former striker, Adriano, very former, has triggered a clause in his contract that means he can now leave Flamengo on a free transfer. So, is this something to do with a nightclub?
Can I say one thing?
Adriano always involved?
Before John replies, when you say Adriano got this clause, he can maybe leave Flamengo, the question to me would be, do they care? Do really they care? John.
Do they care then? Tell us that.
Well, an internet poll taken yesterday, I think, 87, you can't really trust internet polls, of course, but 87% of the fans who answered think Adriano will never return to football. There's only 30, let's not forget that. He's relatively young. But yeah, he jumped before he was pushed, basically. His contract with Flamengo was going to run out in December. He only signed a contract in August, and it was a productivity-based contract. So he was getting around £90,000, I think, something like that a month. And he would have got double that had he played, but he never played. He never got anywhere near playing. So he decided to leave before Flamengo actually lost patience with him again and booted him out. You know, he has a track record of missing training, and every time he missed training, it was, oh, I love Flamengo, you're my best friend, all this business stuff after he'd had a few drinks. And this is what happened last weekend. We had a bank holiday here on the Friday. On the Thursday evening, he was out clubbing, and he was with a famous DJ here, and he made a big announcement when he'd had a few drinks that, you know, I love Flamengo, it's the greatest club in the world, I'm from Favela. And then immediately he asked the club, oh, I want to miss training until Tuesday. So that was the last straw, basically. Whether or not he will return to football, you know, I doubt it, to be honest. I think he's had it.
I don't think this is a story that already went too far. I was thinking exactly yesterday, it was on the taxi that was bringing me to the stadium in Braga to watch Manchester United, and there was Portuguese radio was speaking about that. And I realized that, you know, it's full, the book of football is full of these stories of this lost genius, something like that. But even in that story, there is a counterpart of wiseness, or anyway, a counterpart of things that they have done. But Adriano is just sticking so much to the stereotype, to the cliche of just do whatever wrong to waste your talent, that is actually, to me, is not even no more than news. There was 1 week ago, they asked to Crespo about Adriano and the time they were playing together at Inter. And already by that time, Crespo said, you know what, with how much you can love Adriano, but I remember that we were working hard. He wasn't training because he was always with his problem, drunk.
Yeah.
And then he has to play, and we were on the bench. So it's so sad with Adriano. It's no more about football. It's about, you know, social life.
Romario was like that, but then he always scored, and then he was always brilliant.
No, Romario is another kind of...
My favourite striker. But let's talk about another great striker who has the mentality to provide excellence in his future, and that is, of course, Neymar, who said that the only time that he will play with Lionel Messi is if he moves to Santos. What's that about?
This is Neymar's publicity machine going into overdrive, I think. Well, Neymar will play in Europe, there's no doubt about it. Where he's going to play is the big question. Real Madrid or Barcelona. I think Spain would suit him. Of course, as a commentator here in Brazil, I do not want Neymar to leave because he's by far and away the best thing we have in Brazil. His level is so much higher than all the other players here at the moment. You know, so I don't want him to go, but he will go to Europe. It'd be nice to see him in the Premier League if he can cut it there. I think it will be good. But yeah, he has this contract with Santos until 2014. He will go in 2014 because there's so much money involved in Neymar's contract. There are different organizations who have a chunk of Neymar, who own part of his economic rights, that it's almost certain that he will go. And the pressure will be on to sell him before this contract comes to an end. But yeah, whether or not it's Barcelona, whether or not it's Real Madrid, or he goes off to the Premier League and Chelsea or Man City or even United, who knows? But he'll go. But this thing about, yeah, I'm only going to play with Messi if he comes to Santos, I think just a bit of a joke from Neymar.
All right, thank you so much, John, for coming onto our show and telling us, well, verifying all that's happened in Brazil. Do join us in the coming weeks to fill us in with more news. Thank you, John. Pele claimed the current Spain team is not as good as the Brazil squad of 1970. Briefly, do you agree?
First of all, it was some credit card event with Pelé. That is always to be...
He always loves the drama.
Mamma mia. No, but I must say one thing. It's strange. It seems like it's done on purpose. A few days ago, I was speaking with a Brazilian journalist, and I was actually pointing out that probably in the last 25 years, is the moment in which, and if we look at the Ballon d'Or list, it's probably the moment in which Brazil had the less elite players ever in the last 25 years. But World Cup is in 2 years, and there are the likes of Oscar, Lucas, Paulinho that are growing. So maybe now is not good, but maybe in 2 years could be again good to win a World Cup.
I do love how you understand the word briefly so well. But do join us after the break where we'll talk Ballon d'Or, PSG, and of course, the Derby de la Capitale. See you after the break. See you then. Hello and welcome back to the World Football Show. Now we move on to the part that we call News in Brief, the last part being something that Tancredi hates. But
the in between news and brief.
The in, of course. But this is the part where we bring you a market exclusive, not that even I don't know because you refuse to tell me over the break.
Take the notepad because there is a news that is still not released before, exclusive at the end of the program about a big name of football.
Okay, right. Quickly speaking, Ronaldo said that he would vote for himself in the Ballon d'Or. My producer went, is that really surprising? Well, you know what? I'd vote for myself too if this was a contest, you know? Let's be honest, everyone would vote for themselves. And anyone who says they wouldn't is a martyr, honestly speaking, as if they wouldn't vote for themselves. Who do you think should win the Ballon d'Or?
Andres Iniesta.
What?
Because he was decisive in the World Cup 2010, and if there wouldn't be the players and the manager voting, he or Schneider would win the Golden Ball. Actually, Schneider by that votes. Again, he was absolutely decisive in the Euro Championship. If there was the old rules of Ballon d'Or...
So you're saying 3 weeks is more important than what Ronaldo did over an entire league?
No, the most important games are more important.
Okay. Right, Ibra, another man who I think it's a pity that he's never going to really win the Ballon d'Or. Kung Fu Ibra. Of course, Kung Fu Ibra has now gotten a red card and will miss the next 2 games because of what he did in the last match for PSG. Can they really survive without him? Because let's be honest, all they really need is sort of, you know, a defender, Thiago Silva, Verratti, who can just play the ball up to him, and then him to score, create, and do everything up top.
No, that is a very interesting now to see because... PSG came out from being behind Marseille, now is was holding the leadership, and now it's up to see, okay, how much is Ibra depending? It was the topic when Ibra was at Inter, it was a topic when Ibra was at Milan. Very interesting to see these next 2 games. Can I say that was so funny, the expression of Ibrahimovic after he kicked the chest of the keeper and then get the red card? Wow, what have done?
What did I do?
Usually at the gym, we always do this. Why should I be booked for that?
But, I mean, the man delivered 4 assists over the Champions League for their 4-0 victory. He's God, isn't he?
For Swedish.
No, I mean, I think he's genuinely, honestly, barring Ronaldo and of course, Lionel Messi, I mean, you know, he should be up there.
I must say that he's getting to a level of... being mature for the game, being wise on the pitch, that probably has never before. And this is good with Ibra because it means that he's still getting his top. Let's see if this is the top of next year but okay, still group stage of a group that is
Oh, yes.
quite nice.
He
to
can't
PSG.
make it in the big games.
Dinamo Zagreb.
Whatever. We will see. But let's move on to Lazio versus Roma, which is a fierce, fierce rivalry in Serie A.
Yeah.
And it's odd because Lazio started so well. Roma concede goals left, right and centre, but they have the best attack in Serie A. How will this match pan out?
Well, it will be huge fun. I mean, Zdenek Zeman, the manager of Roma, the one that is responsible of all the goals scored and conceded, is famous, his line in Serie A when he said, when he was manager of Roma, and he said, the derby is just a game like every other game. And in Roma, you just can't say that. They are really family that have almost have brawls because of the derby, okay? Well, that year, that season, when he said that, Roma, for the first time, lost 4 derbies out of 4. So when he was asked last Sunday if it was a game like the others, as he said, if you give me more than 3 points for that game, I will say it's a different game. But he didn't repeat exactly that line because he knows
He's still sticking to it, basically. But, you know, attack sells tickets, but defence wins you trophies.
Indeed.
So I personally think that Petkovic is going to know how to line up. He's got a very technical team on his hand. I know that they suffered quite a lot in their last game. But do you think that, you know, being the home side and perhaps being Roma going into this game sort of slight favourites with their current form, and that usually favours the underdog at times when it comes to these derbies, do you think Lazio has a chance?
Yeah, not because of the home side, but because they actually are not arriving. They are arriving like the underdogs.
Okay.
And with almost nothing to lose because they have always things to lose in derby. But yeah, it depends from that. I mean, Roma was in the headlines in the last weeks when they were losing, when they were winning. Lazio not. So they are free in mind to do that.
Okay, darling, now's the time. Can I
Talking
finally
about-
find out the
Talking
market?
about Lazio,
Yes.
a guy that used to play for Lazio, that now is playing for Inter. What is the identikit? Big market news. Market news exclusive. Dejan Stankovic,
Yeah.
in spite of being so loved by Inter, and he loves Inter a lot, but he's thinking and he's actually having talks with another team to go away to end his career with Nesta, with Di Vaio, with Corradi at Montreal Impact. Montreal Impact
So not another Italian team.
Montreal Impact came over in Italy to play.
That is
a friendly
Montreal
game.
Impact,
Montreal Impact, sorry. But to play. Yeah, you will pay for this. To play a friendly game against Bologna, the former team of Di Vaio, and there've been interesting contacts between them. Stankovic might decide to go to Montreal next summer or maybe even on January. And Inter want to get rid of these wages.
Okay, well, this was the guy that I said to you.
The news!
That was it. That's all we have time for. Stankovic possibly going to Montreal Impact. Thank you so much, Tancredi. Thank you to you, the viewer. Join us next week. Same time, same place, same football chat. See you then.